All right, folks, Duke Machado here with Alexid Strikeforce and excited to bring you an exclusive interview with Denise Gutierrez-Homer, who is running for San Antonio mayor. How are you doing today, Denise?
I'm doing wonderful. Good morning. A little cold. I'm sure everybody's dealing with a lot of bad weather right now around Texas, but we're here and we're ready to answer your questions.
Yeah, staying safe, keeping warm. Hopefully, everyone got their firewood a few days ago and stay snuggled up inside. The roads are icy. I'm up here in the Waco area, so
Oh,
it's a little dicey out there, but
I'm sure it is.
it's perfect for us right now in this Zoom interview. So let's go ahead and get into your race. Um, I heard about your race just a few weeks ago, and within that time to today, it seems like you're really gaining momentum. Um, First, I want to ask you, why are you running for mayor? I mean, what is it that's causing you to jump in this race?
Actually, it's really interesting. I think all of us have a passion for our city in some way. We work, we are educators, we're business people, we're activists in our community and our neighborhoods. And that's one thing I've actually been part of my career, has been a part of my history in San Antonio to be a community activist. And one of the things that really brought my attention to our current state of San Antonio is the direction we're going. I couldn't sit back anymore. I live in the inner city of San Antonio. I live in the east side of San Antonio. And our current climate in San Antonio is extremely disturbing. I know we have a lot of individuals dealing with the struggles of the pandemic. We're dealing with the struggles of our economy. Even before the pandemic, we have some major growing pains. And we couldn't sit back anymore. I couldn't sit back anymore. And I decided one thing for sure. I have the time, I have the energy, and I have the willpower to deal with a lot of these issues that we have to have solutions to bring San Antonio back safe and stronger. So I'm here.
Sa-
I'm ready.
San Antonio, to me, I grew up in San Marcos, and San Antonio was that big city with all the. Well, I mean, there were some pretty sketchy areas of town, crime and all the news that you watched from a kid in San Marcos. San Antonio was this big bad city, but it's really not. There's a lot of elements to San Antonio, but one thing that you have to have, and what I've noticed that some of your opponents and some of the people on the other side, they don't support the police. And I don't understand why people don't support the police. Can you tell me what your stance is on that, and why those people are or have that position?
One of the interesting portions of this race is the fact that we're dealing with a lot of outside instigators. We know we have a climate in the country right now that's really anti police. Unfortunately, we have some of those same elements coming into San Antonio. And what you mentioned before was the fact that we knew San Antonio was that big city in the central part of our Texas, our history, our Republic of Texas was born here. And one thing for sure, we always knew we needed to stand by and protect our homes. And that's no different what we're dealing with right now with protecting our police. They protect us and they're a part of our community. And one thing for sure we know we have to deal with right now is the growing pains of San Antonio. And with that comes the element of making sure we have a strong police, a community relationship with the police. One thing for sure, we have plenty of people who back the blue. I, as a candidate, back the blues, support the blue, and definitely want to make sure they have somebody in a position that will have their doors open to discuss the issues, discuss the growing pains that they're facing. Because if we want to have a strong city, Duke, we have to have a strong police force. When you decide to move, you're in San Marcos, now you're in Waco. I moved to San Antonio. It was that big city for me too, coming from the valley. The fact that I came here, I chose to move to San Antonio, have an education, I saw the growth. But one thing that we need to understand that with that growth, we have to evolve our police, our department. We have to go ahead and make sure that police and the community, we have to work together. You're going to make that 911 call. Somebody needs to answer that call. You're not going to be dealing with calling a counselor because you have somebody at your door trying to bang in and try and take your property, attack your family, attack your business, you're calling the police. You're not calling a social worker. So that's
Mhm.
one thing for sure. We have to understand that when we're paying our taxes, we're paying the taxes to support our police, support our security. And if we want to grow, businesses will not come to San Antonio and invest and develop and bring their employees or invest in the city to grow the economy and grow with our jobs. So it's an interrelationship. We have to have police to have a strong city. We have to have a strong police force to grow our city. So that's what we have to force the issues that we have outside instigators telling us we have to make all of these changes. No, we don't. We're going to grow and we're going to grow and develop with the concerns with our police, with our community. But one thing for sure, we are never going to get rid of our police and we're never going to defund the police.
Well, in a strong police force normally means safer communities, and
Yes, sir.
safer communities normally means businesses will come to that community. That will set up shop in your city if it's safe, if their workforce can be protected and safe. Now, I imagine you're a strong advocate of the Second Amendment, our ability to defend ourselves and to arm ourselves.
Definitely, sir. One thing for sure, this woman will defend your right to own a gun.
Mm.
There's no reason why a law abiding person cannot own a gun. That's our Second Amendment rights. And that's one thing for sure. With my stance, I'm a constitutionalist. We have rules, we have law abiding citizens who should have the right to protect their own family and their own business. Now, we're living in a community right now where I live in District 2 of San Antonio that we actually have our council person working with some of these groups, trying to change our police, trying to say we're going to buy back our guns. The only people I know who are going to sell their guns are the ones who stole the guns. Law abiding citizens aren't going to sell their guns.
Yeah,
So
why
think
why
about
would
it.
they?
Yeah, I'm sorry.
No, well, on one hand, you have people trying to defund the police. I sure wouldn't want to be getting rid of my guns if I knew the police were not going to be there. And so I think it doesn't make any sense to support not funding the police. And I'm so glad that you have the common sense and the leadership to stand your ground and to defend the rights of others when it comes to the Second Amendment. Um, so let's swing into economic development. You know, that's like I mentioned before, these businesses aren't going to come into San Antonio if they're fearful of their employees living in bad communities or danger zones. Um, what what ideas do you have for economic development in San Antonio?
Well, we're going to have to look at everything that we're dealing with right now with the pandemic. We've had to change our business plans. We have restrictions right now here in San Antonio that our city government, working with our county, is actually becoming more of a detriment to our economy. We have reductions. We have actually issues with our businesses that are having to reduce their employees because they can't afford to keep their employees if they don't have enough business patrons coming into their doors because they're reducing it by 25%. We're at 50%, but they can go back to 25% or just close their dining areas completely. We have some businesses right now, it's only drive through. That means you are limiting your employees from getting that paycheck. So you have fewer jobs available for people to apply because you're putting more restrictions on business people. And one thing for sure, when we're looking at business, the economy is reflected regarding our taxes, not only our property taxes, but our business taxes. So most of these businesses are paying for the square footage of their brick and mortar store. And when they're paying more for something that they're not using, they're losing money. Why
Mhm.
would they want to invest? Why would they want to take an opportunity to move into a neighborhood that needs a service and find out it's going to cost them more money in the long run? And they're not going to invest because it's not going to make good economics for them to invest in a community. And
So
one thing that,
opening the city then is kind of like a key to bringing in more economic development.
and we can do it safely, Duke. That's one thing for sure. We're dealing with everybody else's concerns about the COVID vaccination. The logistics behind that has been failing San Antonio. We are 10 districts in San Antonio, and we're definitely dealing with the fact that we're dealing with the county and the city trying to get these vaccinations in place. We have a failure to getting people registered. For those who want and choose to have a vaccination, they're staying on the line, on a phone line, a landline for hours. Not everybody has the capability of using a smartphone like you and I are using right now. I live in an area that a lot of the elderly don't know how to use a smartphone. They use a dial-up. They don't have time to sit there for hours trying to get through that process of just registering for a vaccination. One thing that I'm looking at is what we have along the coastal areas is actually an evacuation plan. And right now that we're dealing with a freeze, that would be implemented right now to make sure anybody who needs a safe shelter, who needs a ride to get to a shelter, who doesn't have transportation, who doesn't have the warmth of their home, or even a blackout right now. Some of us are dealing with those issues with our electricity. And one thing for sure, that actually works with the COVID, because if you are financially in a situation where you can't get help, you are registered. Your doctors, your Medicaid, your Medicare actually know that you need to be evacuated. And that evacuation also means getting you registered for COVID-19, because it becomes a 211 system. We have 311, 911. We could have a 211 system. Everybody that needs to have help of some sort, either through an ambulance, either through private service, through maybe some via transportation of shuttles, can access that information because they've been registered with the city. I mean, it's just common sense. We have the capabilities of doing this, streamlining it and getting the logistics to get those people directly vaccinated if they want to at their district offices, their senior care centers that have been closed the entire time during this pandemic. So those are the solutions. I have a lot of ideas.
Yeah.
A businesswoman, you have to think about how you can get service to your client. And the city has to understand the voter, the taxpayer is their client.
Well said. We're going to take a quick break. Don't go anywhere, folks. We'll be right back. We're visiting with Denise Gutierrez-Homer, candidate for San Antonio mayor.
Thank you.
They're stoking fears about Black and brown Americans, lying about how minorities will destroy the suburbs, whipping up violence and intimidation, and they're pinning it all on what's been an overwhelmingly peaceful movement for racial solidarity. It's true. Research backs it up. Only a tiny fraction of demonstrations have had any violence at all.
I want to be clear in how I characterize this. This is mostly a protest. It is not generally speaking unruly, but fires have been started.
All right, folks, we're back. Duke Machado here with the Lexit Strike Force, and we're visiting with Denise Gutierrez-Homer, again, candidate for San Antonio mayor. Now, San Antonio is the 7th largest city in the nation, and I'm pretty sure it's majority Latino. Is it, Denise?
It is. Yeah. But we're growing in so many different groups of individuals deciding that this is an opportunity for them to be here in San Antonio. So we have a lot of investors coming in from all over the world.
Well, one of the things that we know is, when it comes to leveling the playing field, education is the level is what levels everything. And the sooner we can get our children the education that they need and deserve, the better off they're going to be as they grow into later years in education. Tell me what your thoughts are about early education development.
Well, I used to be a former teacher. Right after college, I went into the educational system. And of course, some people like it, some people don't. Some people just feel that there's something lacking. And unfortunately, I tried my best and I decided it wasn't for me. But I did learn a lot. I learned that we are changing with our education. A lot of it has to do with our parents. A lot of it has to do with the politics behind education based in Austin. One thing for sure that we have here in San Antonio is the fact that we have several districts. We have North Side, Northeast, South Side. I'm part of San Antonio ISD. And San Antonio ISD is often referred to as one of the lower economic areas of the city, but our school district actually only has around 40,000 students. So it's a very small school district, but we just passed a bond for $1.3 billion in our recent bond passage in November. And we keep adding and adding and adding more money to our school district. But what are the results? We really haven't seen the results. And right now, during the pandemic, I know one of my major concerns is a lack of communication with those students. We don't even know where they are. Some of them haven't even registered for school. They haven't returned to school. We don't know if they stayed in our school district or they're in a private education that we have IDEA or promise schools. We just need to know where they are, making sure they're still in the line of education, because
they're falling through the cracks right now.
they're falling through the cracks. Exactly. We have to make sure that that line is still intact, because we know that our educational system is not only for education, but we are part of the social awareness of what's happening in the family dynamics. We know if children are having problems at home. We know if children have a problem with some abuse. We know that there's problems with hunger right now coming through the school districts. So it's just not education, but that's how we connect with that child and their families. So I need to understand where that disconnect is with our school district and our city. We know that the city is funding certain programs in San Antonio, such as pre-K for SA. And that is really a lottery system here. It's for 2,000 lottery students who can really register for this campus. And we know that we're funding that. We know it's important, but we also fund it through our taxes for our school district. So we have a duplication. And right now, people are strapped for money. People are struggling to pay their taxes, their property taxes. So we need to make sure, if we're going to be investing so much money for education, either for private or for public education, we need to make sure we're getting what it's worth. And if we're lacking something, let's make sure we address that. And one thing that we're dealing with is connectivity, internet. Our city itself is helping fund internet connectivity for that one specific school district. Why just one? When we're already paying taxes for that school district that just passed a bond for $1.3 billion. Why can't they use that money to help connect those students to the internet? Why are we taking that amount of money for one school district and not providing it for the entire city? That's where I want to make sure that we understand that we have to be fair and equitable to all the taxpayers, because nobody's more special than the other. We're all dealing with the same issues right now, especially during the pandemic.
You know, the San Antonio, you guys have so many bridges, so many, all your roads, and it used to be, you know, you drive in some parts of town and they'd just be tore up. In other parts of town, the streets were in excellent condition. What's the current state of infrastructure right now, in San Antonio?
We're in a bad situation. Our roads are constantly crumbling. That's one of the first issues that anybody calls into the city, is complaining about their streets and their sidewalks, their drainage, the flooding. And we're noticing that we're never going to get rid of traffic. We're never going to get rid of people having their own transportation. But a big part of it is our public transportation. Again, we help fund via bus. That is a city project that we have. That is a city entity that we provide to our citizens. But they need to be a player in here. Just don't take. Be a part of fixing the streets. You're using the streets. You're a big problem that when you're literally driving down the streets, you're ending up going one way, because where the train, the actual via buses go, you can see the rivets. So we need to make sure that they understand, if they're using our streets, they need to be a partner, make sure that they can help repair their damages, because we're paying for the streets, but VIA doesn't pay for the damages. So we all have to be fair here. And that's what I'm talking about, being equitable. But definitely, that's one of the things we're dealing with our growth. Our streets need to be repaired, and not just patches, not just skim coating it, because definitely when we're dealing with major issues here, when we're getting calls that somebody lost a rim, broken the frame, their tire just disintegrated when they hit a pothole, that's not right. I'm afraid we're going to end up having people missing in a pothole. So we
drive
have to make
into
sure.
a pothole, yeah.
And we can't deal with that. So that's part of our safety as well, because our officers drive on those roads too. Think about that. Our ambulances drive on those roads.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, you're right. I think a city that has good roads, good sidewalks. I mean, that's just an image of a successful, well-run city when you can maintain all of your facilities properly. Um, I
It's a
know
it's a good way to advertise our city too.
that's
Good
right.
road.
That's right. That's you're 100% correct there. I want to get into a couple other issues here. You mentioned something about the Alamo earlier. There's a lot of controversy about what's happening with this reimagine the Alamo. Do you reimagine the Alamo, or what's your position on all that?
Well, this is something that was extremely important for me. I'm an artist as well. And part of the problem that we have with the Alamo plan is the fact that they had to deal with our history and the development of the artwork behind honoring the Alamo descendants, which was called the cenotaph. I became aware of it as an artist because of the history behind having that sculpture created by Mr. Copini, an Italian sculptor who located here to San Antonio and was commissioned by Miss de Zavala, a relationship to one of our first founders of our Texas history, Mr. de Zavala. Which is it's exciting for me as a Hispanic woman to know that this Hispanic woman wanted to honor the Alamo and have the cenotaph created for the descendants. When we started this project in San Antonio, it was all very political. We actually had one specific council person who took helm for this project. And the considerations were outrageous. The discussions were limited. The discussions were open to the public, but the public couldn't partake in the actual discussion. We had to sit there, listen to all the bigwigs from San Antonio and from outside of San Antonio, what they wanted to do with our city, with our historical landmarks, and tell us how we were going to reimagine the Alamo. Why do you have to reimagine anything? The Alamo is the Alamo. Our history is our history. There's winners and losers. You can't change the fact what happened at the Alamo. You can't change the characters that they were actually saying that we were characters and give them more prominence when actually we know we had women, men, children, indigenous people, natives, all fighting for the same cause. And that was an actual Alamo. So one thing for sure, we did not take in consideration the descendants, nor the residents, nor the Texans in all of Texas when we were talking about this. There was no plan B for this reimagine the Alamo, but they kept spending money and money and money. And that was our money because we were in partnership with Texas to do this. And I was a part of that discussion and I was part of that fight. I went and I actually spoke at the commissioner's court several times. I went to city council and definitely told them they could not do anything. And they couldn't actually give me assurances that if they damaged that cenotaph, what responsibility were they going to take to the citizens of Texas to repair it? Or could we sue them for the damages? That is an artifact. That is our history. And I'm very proud to say that I was a part of that fight that we won.
That's I think what people are looking for in a leader. They want you to be able to represent and not back down, and
We're not.
to tell the voters. Well, I think you've kind of done that. I'm not going to throw that question at you, but you have a large population of Latino voters. Typically, obviously, a mayor's race is not a partisan election. So you're drawing from all residents, regardless of party. But Latinos typically vote 70% along Democrat Party lines. How do you plan on bringing some of those voters over to your side, or what's the message to them?
It's really interesting because the Latino voter here in San Antonio, you're correct. Most of them consider themselves Democrat. But when you look at the values behind our Hispanic families and our culture, they lean conservative. We are conservative, but it's marketing. It's la raza. I mean, they love to use the word la raza. Well, la raza is you, me, and everybody else.
Mm-hmm.
And they fail to give the information correctly. Unfortunately, I'm a Catholic and very proud of it, but our Catholic churches tend to side with the left, side with the Democrats. And it's a contradiction because we know that the Democrats have certain values that go against the Catholic Church when it comes to our choices and our families and the respect for life. And I want to inform people, educate people, y que la gente sabe que en realidad son parte de esta opinión que podemos hacer cambios en San Antonio y porque tienen los valores que somos más como republicanos que del democráticos. So la cosa es entender y educarnos. I'm sorry, I'm going into Spanish. And that's
okay.
part of
Yeah.
my delivery because we have to ensure that people that do not speak English know that they're not going to be left behind. They're not going to be given a little card or a little commercial with a voiceover actress or actor saying, I speak Spanish and I want to be your Hispanic representative. No, you have to know and live it. I grew up on the southern border. I grew up and lived the fact that I could see the Rio Grande River. I could see what we were escaping. And I came here, my family came here legally. So there's nothing wrong with saying, I'm, as a Hispanic, want legal immigration. We have to understand that people just don't understand the nuances regarding the politics and respect your values. And if you consider yourself to be a real Hispanic with the family-oriented values, you tend to be conservative. And there's nothing wrong with that. And so with my message during this campaign is to share those values, share those ideas and solutions, and that actually gives them a reason to go, wow, she sounds like me. That is me. And because it's nonpartisan, that's what I want to take advantage of. Let's don't put red or blue, an R or a D. Let's think of the candidate. And we've lost that. Respect the candidate who wants to respect you and represent you. Because that's what we're lacking right now, is the fact that Latinos don't understand that they're given a lot of little fancy commercials, fancy little signs, but they forget that that person that they're going to vote for will often forget where they came from. And I won't forget who I am or where I came from and where I am today, because that's what I want to do, is represent my neighbors. I consider them, my voters are my neighbors, and that's who I want to represent.
Well, I can tell you that because of who you are, how we've come to know you in these past few weeks, the Lexit Strike Force is real excited about helping you in your campaign. We want to get involved and show support for you. I'd like for you to say something to our strike force volunteers, even though you haven't met them and they don't really know you yet. Just a few words to our team.
I'm extremely honored to be here. I'm extremely honored and privileged to know that we have people like yourself, Duke, and volunteers in Texas who will not take this situation lightly. We never give up. That's Texas. That's the Alamo. We never gave up. And as Latinos, that's for sure. We had struggles along the way. We have family history that came from other Latino countries. We had struggles. We never gave up because we knew what was important. And if you're a part of these volunteers and the volunteer groups that are listening to me, I really thank you for taking the time to even listen to me and knowing who I am, because that's for sure. We know where we are right now in the political world of San Antonio and in Texas and in the nation. We don't have an opportunity to hear from candidates like me and other individuals who want to do their best for our community. And if you think you can support me, you want to learn more about me, I'm willing and able to reach you in any capacity, if possible. Reach me on my videos, reach me on my website, but I want that interaction, because you can't go out and campaign for me if you don't know me. I want you to know me. I want to know what you want more from me, because that's one thing we're losing. The actual person sitting in any position doesn't have that connection with not just the volunteers, but you, the volunteer, are the one who pays their taxes, have your families, go to work, and you want to make sure that your home, wherever you are, is going to be safe and protected for yourself and for your future generations. So I thank you and your volunteers for even considering me. I'm truly honored to have this opportunity, and I hope you all can reach out to me.
Well, we are looking forward to that. We're going to have you on soon with our group in this big Zoom meeting. But for now, I thank you for taking your time this Sunday afternoon and sharing some thoughts with us and the voters. We're going to get this video produced and posted here shortly. Thank you, Denise. Thank you to your team, to your husband there who's helping with the camera.
Thank you.
It takes everyone, and we'll see how it all goes. But you keep going. I see the good things you're doing, and we will be in touch very soon.
Well, we need you, Duke. I thank you for putting this all together. We need more people like you.
Oh, it's my pleasure. And to all those watching, thank you for tuning in. Duke Machado, Lexington Strike Force. We're out of here.